Hi, welcome to the first podcast in I.S.D. I'm Lucia Palazzi, the Director of Professional Development, and I am here today with Robert Siebert, the expert and gifted and talented for our district. Welcome, Mr. Siebert.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here today. So I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit about not only our gifted and talented program, but also the students and the teachers of the gifted and talented kiddos in Galena Park I.S.D. And what are the best practices in serving them? What are some of the characteristics of gifted and talented students?
So the important thing to note is that giftedness can look different in all different students, different backgrounds of students, different areas of the world. Giftedness in the United States is not necessarily the same as giftedness in another country. So we have that, but some very simple things to look at with trying to identify if a student is above their peers, and in that way would be like vocabulary. If they have an advanced vocabulary, that's an easy thing to see. That's not something that a normal third grader would say.
Right.
Those kind of things. As they're learning, a lot of them will just have quick mastery and they'll be able to recall their information, without much practice. It just kind of happens for them. They also, a lot of times, will have an extensive amount of knowledge about a wide variety of things. So you can talk about something and they have knowledge about it. Sometimes they will even have something that they're, without lack of better words, obsessed with. There was one student who I can recall just loved dinosaurs, and no matter what he did, he had a dinosaur book, or he had some figurines. Like, he did his project on dinosaurs, so he was just hyper
immersed.
On one topic. One of my favorite things that you can pick out, especially as students start to get a little bit older, is their sense of humor. It's not like students of their same age. They may think something's funny that other students might not catch on to.
They have more highbrow humor.
Yes, it's great to be able to interact with those students, when they do have that kind of humor.
Yeah. So does that fall into their maturity level as well, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a lot of it. Experiences. A lot of GT students will want to interact more with adults. So, instead of going out and playing with friends, they may have stayed inside and, watched dad work on cars, or, while mom was hanging out with friends, whatever's happening, they wanted to interact more.
With adults.
So, a lot of times you'll see that too, where the student will want to come and visit with the teacher more than, talk with
their peers. How interesting. So you kind of touched on this already. So these students are different from other student groups in what we talked about with their humor, and that who they want to associate more with and things like that, and what they consider fun would be researching dinosaurs as opposed to going out and going to a party with their friends or something of that nature. What challenges may these students, these gifted and talented students, face throughout their school career?
Right. So, one thing growing up, a lot of times they don't necessarily fit in with others. So, they have that social emotional kind of issue there. They progress and at different times with different parts. So, emotionally, they may be advanced, or intellectually they're advanced, where physically they may be behind, right? It's that asynchronous development. So that's a little bit different. That's a challenge where, they may be, thinking at one level, but they're, at a completely different level with a different, characteristic that they may have. A couple of challenges that really stick out to me, when you ask this as well, is underachievement and imposter syndrome. These things show through with our students a lot of times. Research shows when they're not challenged going through, when everything's really easy and simple, as soon as something may get difficult, then they begin to think they're not smart anymore. just because it's always been, it's easy, so I'm smart. So it's, a lot of times it's things that they already have experience with, and they already know that they're just reproducing in class, and it makes them feel smart, and everyone's telling them, oh, you're so smart.
You're so smart.
Right. So
this can hit them in college too.
exactly. Yeah, it may be not until college. It may be when they get their first job.
Yes.
Where they, imposter syndrome is where they feel like they don't fit in. They have a deep sense of, a deep fear of being identified as a fraud, because they feel like, maybe I'm really not as smart as they tell me that I am.
That's really interesting.
Because something really kind of hits them where it's their first challenge.
Oh.
And then underachievement's kind of on the other sense, where some kids will just shut down because it's been so easy, and now it kind of gets a little bit difficult and they have to start working. So it's an imbalance between their true ability and what they're actually doing with that.
And so to challenge these students, in my experience, I know that a lot of teachers, we used to think that giving them more work, well, you did this, so let's pile on some more because you're done. And that is looked down upon, and you kind of want to go deeper. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we all, if we take this away from education, we take this away from being a student and put it in terms of working. If we do our jobs and we do it to the best of our abilities and we're doing an excellent job, and someone just keeps saying, well, you're doing amazing, I'm just going to keep giving you more and more, eventually we're going to learn that if we don't do it as quickly or we don't do it as well, that we're going to stop getting this extra work. So, in any part of life. But the students are the same way. It's unfair to them because, they're doing things quickly, they're doing things well, and you're just saying, here's more to do, and you're defeating them. So they're not learning anything new. They're just redoing things that they already know.
So it would be, instead of more superficial learning, it would be the hyper-focused learning that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, let them dig deeper. Let them, choose a topic within reason. If they've already mastered everything that you're going to teach everybody else, let them go to the computer and research, something different, and maybe give a small presentation in the class when they're finished, or write a small paper on it.
Well, talk to me about choice and giving GT students choice in the classroom, because that's also an important part.
It's huge. It's something that we stress in encounters. And talking about choice, I mentioned this earlier, it's not about giving them choice for everything. Like, you have to have some parameters. Because just like any other person, if they have to choose, and sometimes it's even worse, if they have to choose from too many things, it's hard to narrow that down. So, it's not just, do this exact thing. It's, here's a couple of different ways you can show me that you know the information, choose one. And it works for all students, but GT students really like to have that ownership over their learning.
What about the classroom environment? What would a great classroom environment be? I know that the hot topic in education now is getting away from, what I call cemetery desks, or cemetery classrooms with the desks all lined up in a row, and, how we basically take tests, okay? But get away from that on the regular daily basis. I mean, is a GT classroom, what is an ideal setup for that classroom?
Right. Eventually, what I like to see happen, and what happens in our encounters classrooms, our encounters teachers are great with this. Some of our journeys classrooms are there, but the teacher, instead of standing up in front of the room and instructing, they're basically becoming a facilitator of learning. So they're giving them work, in their zone of proximal development. That's a little bit above the level that they currently are working on, enough to challenge them. But just like we would scaffold down for a student who might need help in that sense to come up, we can scaffold up just enough to give them the extra support, and then eventually pull that support away, so that once they kind of get it, then they can take it off and run. And that's when if you ever were to go in one of these classrooms, you would see kids doing a lot of different things at the same time, because where one student may even work quicker, the other one may want to dig deeper into that topic, so they may not necessarily be on to the next task, but they're both continuing to learn and working towards that end goal.
So not everybody's in lockstep.
Right.
Okay.
It's
and that's good for administrators to know too, because
right.
when they come into the classroom,
it may appear like it's chaos,
right,
when really it's not, because everyone is doing what they're doing. Sometimes, the students are even, having full-blown conversations about, other things while they may be working. Not completely off task, but
Right.
Things that are interesting to them that may be related.
Last question for the student characteristics portion. What are some myths that surround the GT students?
Yeah, there are so many. I mean, I don't know where to begin. Just, one that really sticks out to me is, the thought that the GT student needs to be great or amazing, outstanding in all areas, right? Well, you're GT, so how are you not, passing all of your math tests? How are you not masters on every single star? Where we would love that to happen, and it, a lot of times it does happen, but that's not always the case.
And that could go through to even sports and art and music, right?
Definitely.
You're not the star track athlete. What's wrong?
Yeah, and some of our GT kids don't want to go to gym class. They would rather stay back in the classroom and help the teacher in some other way.
Yes.
We see those kind of things. Also, the thought that putting a GT kid in a classroom will automatically raise the level of everyone else in that classroom is also a false thing. We have to, as much as it may help in some ways, the students who are struggling aren't going to look at that student who's mastering everything with ease and think of them in some positive way. They're almost going to have some resentment towards that student. So, unless there are some other things happening in that classroom to build that community, just putting that student in there isn't going to raise the level of everyone else automatically, right? There has to be some other connections and some other things happening.
Right.
And then, one other thing, I've heard this before, that person teaches the encounters class, they've got it easy. Well, yeah, they love what they do, and they have some amazing students. We have some great students here in our district, but it's not easy. It's different than teaching in the other groups. So where some teachers like it a certain way, their classroom's quiet and their kids aren't questioning them.
Right.
Well, in the GT classroom, those kids are going to question everything that you do. So you need to be ready to sometimes just admit that you're wrong, because if you don't, they're going to catch on to that, and they're going to,
or admit that you don't know. You might not know the answer.
They're quick to see that you're telling a lie, or you're not being genuine.
Right.
They're quick to see that.
Right. Okay. Let's move along here to teacher attitudes. So talk to me about, when an administrator is looking for a teacher to teach encounters or their GT students, what should the attitude be? What are some of the teacher characteristics that would bring these kids to the next level?
I think the first thing, and it's probably the most obvious, but it may not always happen, is that teacher has to have a willingness and a desire to work with those students. As teachers, we all got into the profession for a different reason. Some of us, really want to work with those students who can really move on, and some of us really want to be able to see growth in our students. So we'd rather work with some students who may be on level or maybe need some help to get to that point. So you need to have that willingness. They also need to be flexible, because we talked about how the classroom, you're becoming a facilitator.
Right.
If the teacher can't let that go, can't let their classroom go and their students blossom and learn on their own, then it's going to be a little rough for them, because the students aren't going to enjoy the class either. So they really need to do that. They need to be willing to adjust on the fly. Sometimes you're going to have students, you're going to have a class that just completely got the lesson, understood the lesson way quicker than you realize. So you have to be prepared for that.
You have 15 minutes left. What do I do?
Right. So you can't just quit it. Right. You have to keep going. That's really important. You have to be willing to learn every day, because your students are going to want to learn every day. I'm still learning, and I hope we're all lifelong learners. We talk about that. It's really important to put that into practice with these students, because they are looking up to you as someone who's learning. So if you're not doing that, then
you're not modeling
You're not modeling. Right. So that's really important.
And I could imagine they might need more patience.
Yeah.
Perhaps, because somebody's always going to be raising their hand and saying, they're very inquisitive. So tell me more about this and tell me more about that. And I would imagine the teacher's personality has to be that of, let's explore that.
Right.
instead of sit down and be quiet, or, you know?
Yeah, and you're going to get the question why. You know, why are we doing this? You know, why is this important? Because
So it's the "Are we there yet?" question.
yeah,
Except,
and if they don't see value in it, in what you're trying to do with them, you know, if they just think it's something rote and mundane,
yes,
you know, you're going to lose them.
right.
You know, it's important. You know, that's really what we try to do in encounters is give them that opportunity to explore a little bit and let them understand that why. Why are we doing this? Yes, we have some other pieces to this, but you know, you still get to have your choice and you get to explore
And use their creativity to demonstrate their learning.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And talking about creativity a little bit, you know, one of the myths, and go back to the myth part. Some people believe that, you know, creativity means their artistic ability, when that's not the entire truth. Yeah, that could be part of it. That can be part of a student's gift. But it's more about thinking about something new and creating something new.
Yes.
With their thoughts.
That's good. Well, what about their interpersonal communication skills? Because the teachers would have to model that, you know, for the kids, because they do have this large vocabulary.
Right.
So how would the teachers be able to model, you know, interpersonal relationship skills with these kids that have this out of the box thinking and this incredible vocabulary, so that they can communicate and function in a school setting where all of the kids aren't up to that level?
So one thing that's coming out this year is the social emotional learning that we're required to do, and that's actually something that has been a complete focus of gifted education for how long. You know, so we really have to you know, model it for our students, teach our students sometimes, you know, even things as simple as tact. You know, when to say things, when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate.
Yes.
You know, we have to have those, you know, those breaks in, you know, in teaching or whatever, in order to teach that part, you know, that social skill. So there's a lot of skills in that sense that, you know, if the GT teacher is not modeling it, you know, those students aren't going to pick up on it. You know,
and it goes back to relationships.
Right.
Relationships. Okay, so moving on to our next topic, which is teaching strategies. So what works in the GT classroom? I know we talked about choice before, but can you talk to me about the importance of reflection time with these kiddos?
Yeah. So one thing that a couple of our encounters classrooms are doing, they're starting to work with the students on teaching them how to set their own SMART goals, their own goals. So they'll kind of begin the day or the class, you know, with, you know, set some goals for yourself. Basically, that leads up to the end of the day when they're finished. They're able to go back and reflect on what they've finished, what they have done well. So they have an opportunity every day to then basically grade themselves on a lot of different things. Exactly. So we give them that opportunity. We want them to go and think about you know, everything that they have done. Think about the learning that has taken place. That way that they can improve that, you know, the process or their organization for the next week.
And it's good because a lot of times students don't know what they don't know. You know, they get this grade and it's like they shove it in their backpack and they don't know, well, where did I go wrong? Why did I get a C on this assignment? They don't diagnose that.
Right.
And so this is a great thing for the GT kiddos because they want to know, well, even if they get a B+, well, why didn't I get an A? Let me look and find out where I was lacking, and then what can I do about it? So that's good that they would have that in their daily plan.
Right. And as difficult as it is, we also
and that'll turn into a habit.
Yeah, exactly. And we really try to do one-on-one time every day with every student, and it's not easy. It may not happen every single day, but it's, you know, it's that one-on-one time in some capacity. But one thing that we really push as students are writing their research papers is that one-on-one time with the teacher to break down their writing. You know, and with the teachers or with our teachers, we've expressed how we want them to do it early. So catch them, you know, after their introduction or after their first couple of paragraphs, get in there and work with them and break it down and explain, you know, where are some areas they can improve. And what we really see is students reflect on what they've done and the corrections coming from the teacher and the suggestions that may be there. and their writing actually it improves as they continue down in their research papers. So just that reflection piece as well, and talking about why this may be incorrect, or this could be said a little bit better.
Should teachers connect art or music or something whenever possible to academic assignments?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like writing assignments, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and
as an expansion?
Yeah, I mean...
How important is that?
Yeah, I mean, any of those kind of things, touching on the different senses, the different ways the students learn are important, are great. Hitting the creativeness of the student, like their ability to create something new, is always something that we try to do. So it's important.
And being open to having the students demonstrate their knowledge in different ways.
Yes, different products.
All right, what about Bloom's taxonomy? What level should the teachers be at? How important is it that they're familiar with things of that nature?
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about reflecting and getting the students to look at, to analyze what they've done, analyze other people's work. That's huge. That's a higher order thinking. But also getting them to create something new.
Yes.
If you can ask them the right questions, give them the right activities, you can take any lesson, and really raise that level. It's not, you don't necessarily have to write 2 completely different lessons or 3 completely different lessons, but if you use
deeper questioning.
Yeah, deeper questioning or different activities. When I used to have this, this printout that had action words, activities that students could do at the different levels. So we could have one TEK that we're working on, but then the students can be working at different levels depending on their readiness level.
Yeah, and they could design something. They can synthesize. Like you said, they can create.
Exactly.
That's that level. Okay. So talk to me about, just to wrap this up, what are some resources for teachers? Are there any trainings or any books that you can advise them to move on to the next level, to read if they're either a GT teacher now and they're a first year, or they're an aspiring GT teacher, or if they're an administrator that just wants to brush up on what to look for in the GT classrooms? Where can they go?
Right. I mean, there are endless possibilities with this, and that's something that I believe that we do a great job with in advanced academics is giving the teachers those options. Obviously, if you're just starting out with teaching, you need your 30 hours, your original 30 hours as required by the state. We offer that here in our district. We also, are part of the Houston GT Cooperative, where teachers can go during the summer and attend different parts of the city, each piece. Even the fall and the spring, they have the same thing.
And those are on Eduphoria currently?
Yeah, they're on Eduphoria. We have a Google Doc with all the GT things. Like if it's part of the Houston Co-op, they need to sign up through an outside source, Eventbrite. So we have them sign up there. And
Eventbrite?
Eventbrite.
Okay.
And I'm able to go into Eventbrite and see which of our teachers signed up. So last year we had, like 125 teachers. We just recently got our numbers. We had 125 teachers attend co-op.
Wonderful.
I want to say we had 200 hours of options within the district. So
okay. So, would they go to Eduphoria to check out all of these trainings?
So there's a lot on Eduphoria.
And what are the different parts of the initial 30 hours?
Sure. So you have identification and assessment. You have nature needs and social emotional. We have the creativity and instructional design piece. And then we have, differentiation or meeting the needs of those students, in the everyday classroom. Okay,
and these trainings are in-depth trainings.
They are.
Okay.
We do them in 4 days, 7.5 hours each.
That's pretty intense.
And it really, we try to dig as deep as possible. We have certain things that we have to meet the standards of the state, but then we really try to design it around what we do here in our district so that we give more information.
And then the 6-hour updates for those who already have those initial hours.
Right, so after the 6 hours, or after the 30 hours, then they need to do 6 hours every year. There's not one set thing that I would recommend for a teacher to do for their 6 hours. What I would recommend is for them to self-reflect. We talked about that earlier, right? But reflect upon themselves. Where do they want to improve in the classroom, or what do they want to learn more about those students? And once they figure out what they want to learn about, then they can seek out the trainings for that. If there's something out there that we may not offer. If they just, send us a request, then that's something maybe, we can find somewhere for them to go or bring something here. Maybe we haven't thought about it.
Is there an author or a TED Talk or anything that we can steer them to?
We did a book study last summer, and I'm actually replicating it this summer, hoping to get some new people. I want to say we had about 12 or 15 teachers last year do it. Right now, it starts next week. Right now, we have about 8 or 10. But the book that we read was great. I mean, it's something that is beneficial for the newest teacher, and something that, as the coordinator who's been doing this, for 10, 12 years, that gave me information and gave me things to think about that I didn't know. But it's called Teacher's Survival Guide, Gifted Education. Just the fact that it was easy to understand, it was an easy read. We read a chapter a week or a couple of chapters if they were shorter, and we would just, there would be a question posed and we would respond to each other. We would post our answer
on a Google Classroom.
Google
setting?
Classroom, right?
Cool.
So that was part of, the people
and they
who
would
did
get
that
credit for that?
They earned their 6 hours throughout the summer just for
Nice.
reading a book and going back. And so we're doing the same thing this year. That book itself just was very helpful. One of the teachers even said, "I wish this was required for everybody," because it was that good, and we had a good time with it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. End of podcast 1. I wish I had one of those things that I could click.
Yeah.
Do you want to listen to it? Let's
Sure.
see if
Did
Mark
I go
can.
too long?
No.